And good morning, everybody, and welcome to this show, Blueprints of the New. It is a monthly webinar, and you're invited to participate, of course, every month, where we discuss the dance between the human and soul, and we discuss all the current energies and whatever else, comes up, whatever energies come up for the discussion, for stepping through, for working through, for walking through. And yes, I would like to welcome everybody to this space, to this safe space. We are a group that are comprised of people from all over the globe. So good morning, good day, and good night for to cover every sort of times, hopefully to cover every sort of time zone. And my name is Alex Sersha, and I work with Michael. As you know, I am part of Michael. And for all of those people that are new today, you're especially welcome as well to participate. I live here in Far North Queensland, northeastern part of Australia. It is considered for our country a little bit of a remote area, and we are going into the summer, unlike the Northern Hemisphere. So this equinox for us, it's from winter into summer, although the weather, the patterns of nature are a little bit different here. We kind of have a fall or autumn in between winter and springtime, because our winter is a dry season. So that means that even though there is a rainforest, there are a lot of trees that are deciduous, which means that they do drop their leaves. Mainly it's rainforest fix. There are sort of like really gigantic big trees. And they just have their own mind. They just decide to drop their leaves whenever they decide to drop their leaves. And, their process of dropping the old leaves and then growing new ones can be done within like 2 weeks. They don't waste any time. And me following, the patterns of nature, I have still not figured out. They like to surprise everyone. I've still not figured out as to what months they will be doing this, because they tend to do this a little bit at different time every year. But it is beautiful because when you go for a walk, I love that feeling of sensuality, of walking through the leaves, of smelling all the scents of kind of autumn, even though, well, it's not. And then of the new growth, because they sort of shoot out these beautiful, bright green leaves. And they do this so quickly, and they do this so flamboyantly. And all around them, in the more drier forests, in the more eucalyptusy forests, there is fire, because it's a dry season. And we do have a lot of land here also that is, that the indigenous people look after, and they actually burn every year. So there is on the side of our town, of our small town, there are hills which they look after. It's a national, well, it's considered a national park also. And you can see the fire burning along all of those hills every year, which means that because they do it regularly, the fire is what it's called cold fire, which means that it only burns, it goes through the landscape very quickly. It only burns the dry grasses, the brown grasses. It releases the nutrients into the soil. And then after the fire, there's this spurt of new growth. There are some plants that basically wait for this time, because they cannot go to seed, they cannot sprout without the fire, because the fire is a natural part of this landscape, just like the storm's a natural part of this landscape. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because one of the issues, as we're all aware, is this closer working with nature, with the natural cycles, because it is in this way that we can in peace live on this earth, walk this earth in harmony with everything that is around. And none of the elements are scary. None of the elements are then a threat to us, because we can live, we can move, we can dance with them in a natural way. It is, there are a few days when we can, and nights when we can smell the smoke, But over the years, you know, coming from Europe where things are not done in this way there, fire is not a natural part of the landscape there. It took me a while to get used to, but now I look forward to, because there is a special sensuality about this wood smoke in the air, and it blows off really quickly. And in the last couple of days, we even had some rain. So now it's just going to all shoot out and be brilliantly green and beautiful and lush. And working in this way with nature, when I am doing my trips that I go, I sort of, for those of you that know, I do a lot of wandering in the bush with no GPS, with no mobile phone, with no technology, just, you know, my car and my intuition. And we go out, and the way, when you are in that zone, when I am in that zone, so connected, it is amazing that I can go through the biggest storm season and yet not be inundated by storm. And what I mean by that is that everywhere I go, every road, the storm has either just been the storm that is a natural part of the environment has either just been or is coming. But I sort of move with that clear sky, and without even thinking about it, without even doing, you know, without even paying any particular attention. It's just that when you are in that zone, it is just such a natural way, and you know where to turn, you know when to go left, where to go right, where to stop and enjoy the view, and everything just works out so perfectly. And it is this kind of living that is so satisfying, and it is this kind of living that makes me feel so joyously. I do not even have, as Alex, I do not even have words to describe how it feels like to be such a part of everything that is, to be such a part of the whole creation, to be part of the smells and the scents and the sounds of nature, and this peaceful being, and yet so alive, so vibrant, so living, so in touch with life. It is an exhilarating feeling, and I would recommend it. I would recommend it with all my heart, that each and every one of you also experience that kind of, have that kind of experience. And it is available because it is something that for the future of humanity, it is here. It is part of this living in harmony with everything that is. It is part of living in harmony with life. And life includes everything. Life includes storms, it includes cyclones, it includes fire, it includes snow. It includes all of these parts. And yet they are not your enemy. They are not our enemy. They are part of the natural landscape. They're actually exciting. So it requires to have a look at them from a little bit of a different perspective, from a little bit of a different angle, and befriending them. And then you can dance with them with ease and with grace. And you can navigate all of the storms and all of the upheavals that the earth is going through. So, and for those of you that are new, so going back to our episode, there is a Q&A panel on the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, if you have, type them in, and we'll get to them at the end. There will be a time to answer your questions. And also I would like to announce that next weekend I will be running a 1-hour workshop, and it's called Time Master. And it will be about just creating time within this busy environment, within the busy society, to spend with yourself, to spend with your eternal self. And we will sort of go through some of the techniques. We will go through the energy. We will work through the energy of any blockages, of any stuckness that perhaps exists with regards to this, so that you can release the time, so that you can create and expand and mold time to fit you, to fit your requirements, to fit your need, to fit your desire to spend time with your internal self. And here we are. We are Michaela. And we do like to play with you. And we like to play with you with this name and as to how we pronounce it. Because we, dear ones, are whole. We are feminine, we are masculine. And we dance in our wholeness, and we dance in the equality of all of the parts. We do love, we do recognize, and we respect all of the parts. Even those parts that do not at this stage accept us, even those facets and aspects that walk this earth, that at this stage don't know who we are, that at this stage want to continue to be disconnected. And we love them just as much as we love all of those ones that have accepted, that have embraced, that have allowed us this dance, this magical dance of eternal self and the human, the divine human. And today, dear ones, we would like to celebrate. We would like to celebrate your life. We would like to celebrate you. And we would like to celebrate just how far you've come. And we would like to celebrate everything that has happened. And we would like to take a deep breath with you and accept your story and accept everything that has happened to you. And accept it and love it just as it is, because all of the parts, all of the components of this story is what brought you here, to this space, to this momentous time, where now we are over the hump, so to speak. We are over Wednesday. For those of you that are used to Monday to Friday work, we are over the Wednesday. We are on a sort of downhill part where it becomes easier, because you dear ones have done the hard work. You have integrated and you have walked this difficult, dense 3D reality. And you have taken upon yourself so much, not only all of the energies that were not even yours to process, to work through. You have taken them on because you are, dear ones, you were made for this. You are capable of transforming, transcending all of the energies of accepting, of allowing, of getting things unstuck. You were made for this, dear ones. Each and every one of you. That's why you are here. And you are, as you know, the pioneers. And you are those ones that we celebrate every day. We celebrate you. And we are amazed at what you are doing, and we are amazed at just how far you have come, and we are amazed at what you have achieved in this one lifetime. And we also sometimes giggle in a good way, because you are so quick to judge yourself, and you're so quick to beat yourself up with all of the things that you still think that you are not perfect, that are not good, that you would like them to change. And we would like to today remind you that this celebration of your life, that this celebration of you, includes acceptance of everything. And it also asks you, this celebration, to step out of beating yourself up for anything, because this has no place in your life anymore. The practices of beating yourself up or judging yourself is outdated now. It doesn't look good anymore. It doesn't look good on you, dear ones, not in this new energy. And it has no place, because it has served its purpose in the old energy. So whatever you're going through, especially in the energies like this week, with so much intensities, and we are aware that many of you have experienced things like dizziness, headaches, intensity. We have experienced being visited by the old aspects of yourself, because they may have come back to you. They may have shown you, or to show you the last bits that needed to be integrated, needed to be walked through, that needed to be allowed, that needed to be released. And these parts, when they finally, these parts of you that were such a big part that you've identified yourself with for such a long time, and you are times when you step out of them, when you let them finally go, you don't know, you're going to the space of unknown, and the space where you haven't been before, and you can feel like a child. And we remind you that this part of feeling at the beginning, this part of feeling the newness, is part of the new energy, because you have never been here before. And it is natural and normal to feel like a beginner. And it is these are some of the things that as a human who is dancing with the eternal self, it is a natural and normal and a regular part of being. So rejoice when you feel in this way. Rejoice when you feel new. And rejoice and celebrate when you feel like you're at the beginning, because you are. It means that you are sort of walking into a next stage. But dear one, in all the other ways, you are a mature being. You're not at the beginning because you are dealing with the new energy. And to be in this place, it means that you have had to walk through so much, through the valley of death. You have had to walk through so many energies, so much old stuff. You have had to integrate so much. So dear one, you are in this way, not at the beginning. And this is part of being multidimensional, to be all of these things at the same time, to be mature, to be ancient, and yet to be a baby, a tiny little one that rejoices at everything new, because this is the joy of being. This is the joy of stepping into the new experience, of being unstuck, of always experiencing something new, something bigger, something greater, something more expanded. And it doesn't mean that what just happened, what you walked through, has got any less value. It just means that you are done with it. And you will find as a human being that when you dance with your eternal self, you will always feel everything in many ways. When you step out of them, they always feel small, because there is just so much to you. There is so much to the eternal self. And so the feeling can always be this beginning, this being small, that everything that you've just experienced, that everything that you've just done can feel small, but it is a natural part of being just accepted and let it go. And as we said, rejoice, because the new is just in front of you. You have stepped into the new. And it is the open space, the void in the new, where you can create what you want. But it does require that you are clear and clean in this new space, because because as we remind you that it is out of your own self that you create what you create. You create your experiences from your own self, from your parts. So if there are unintegrated parts of you, they will also create in this new way. So we remind you that clarity is even more important than ever. Clarity about who you are, clarity about what you want to experience, clarity about not allowing the distractions, about not allowing old things, about not allowing mass consciousness to choose on behalf of you, to choose for you what your experience should be. And you will find that you will become even more uncompromising. There are levels and levels and levels of being uncompromising. And we explored this particular thing, this particular theme. We explore this with you because for us also, this space is new. And we dance with you. We did your eternal selves. And we explore this and we go deeper and deeper and deeper. And we found out just how uncompromising you can be, because the more uncompromising you are in this way, the more freedom you will feel. Because it has to do with your authenticity, and it has nothing to do with making everybody else wrong. It has to do with being you, allowing the consciousness of you to be here more and more and more, to permeate every part of you, to permeate every part of your life, so that all the things that you create in this new space will be created with consciousness. And in this way, you can create what you want. In this way, you can create new worlds where you don't feel a victim of circumstances. New worlds that don't include parts that are unsavory to you. New worlds, new societies, new environments that fit with who you are, conscious being, whole being, a being integrated, where there is no difference, not real any, not difference in divinity between the human and the eternal self. They're equal, but a little bit different. And this is the joy, because this is the joy of diversity, of dancing with this. So there may still be this week, the energies are still continuing to be intense. And the parts that are knocking at your door are the parts that do want a final release, because dear ones, these parts, they also want to be free. They want to experience, they want to taste something new, so they are ready. Those parts that come knocking at your door, even though sometimes you're not welcome, they're not welcome. You feel like they shouldn't come. You sometimes feel like, oh no, why are they coming again? But they are coming again because there might still be the last the last bit that just did not release, the last part of it, the last bits that just have not wanted to let go, or that you, human, have not wanted them to let go because you didn't know what the unknown, you were fearing the unknown, you didn't know what that will be like. You don't know who you will be after this part that you've identified with so much will be gone. There may still arise fears. Will you still exist? Who will you be if not this part that you've identified so strongly within the 3D? And it could be a lot of different parts. You could have been a drama queen. You could have been all sorts of different. It's and it doesn't matter what you called. It doesn't matter what you call this part and what it was, because its function and its birth, you birthed this part when you felt the wound of the heart, the deepest wound of the heart. And this part was protecting you. And this part was making the wounded part separated from life. And this wounded part felt dead. It was dead. Dead meaning in the sense that it wasn't interacting with life. So when these wounded parts finally are touched by your eternal self, touched by your life, there is an incredible, incredible experience of release. There is an incredible experience of feeling alive, of feeling joy, of feeling of euphoria even. Because this part wanted to be alive, it just didn't feel safe. And yet, dear ones, now you are safe. Now this part is safe because you have inside of yourself created this safe space. You have cleared all of the parts that would like to destroy this part within yourself. Because as we know, this work that we're doing is the inner work. And we're not now talking about mass consciousness and people who are still playing in that space. We are talking about you, dear ones, the clear ones, the pioneers, the brave ones, the courageous ones, the ones that, unlike any other in the whole universe, in the whole creation, because dear ones, you are walking through these emotions, these feelings, these experiences that have been created at the time when all that is, the source, has split itself, has made a monumental decision to split itself into all of its varieties and give freedom to each and every part of itself to be. And it is in that time that all of these emotions and feelings do originate in fears, and they have been unresolved, and they have been stuck for centuries and centuries and centuries. So it is why we are reminding you to celebrate yourself, to celebrate you, to look in a mirror and say thank you. And look at yourself as this grand creator, this grand courageous being, because it is you, dear ones, that are walking this path. It is you, dear ones, that have walked through the fears, through the valleys of shadows, through the valleys of death. You had the courage to integrate. You had the knowledge, the wisdom to integrate all these parts. And yet, yes, we know that it's a forever deeper and deeper and deeper process. So the ending of all of this doesn't exist. It's just that everything becomes more and more joyful. It becomes more and more free. And you become more and more free, as you have already. And if there are some parts still that have resisted this integration, that is okay as well. You don't have to do anything about those parts. You can still choose to live life, to feel what you want to feel, regardless of what those parts are choosing. And this is where the ability to be uncompromising comes into, because within your own inner world, it is where you use this even more than on the outside. Because you will find that the outside world, as you have found, is changes as you change inside of yourself. So when you make those changes inside of yourself, when you breathe into those spaces, when you have the courage to breathe into the space which has not seen the light of consciousness before, you will see how gentle that part is and how scared that part was. And even if it may have created like a part of yourself that you may have felt ashamed of, and when you see that part, that you can be sometimes shocked as to who you've been, how you behaved. It is here where we remind you that this is the work, dear ones. And this is where you do not beat yourself up, because it is normal part of this process to feel those feelings. When you walk into these spaces that have not seen love before, that have lived in fear, you will feel many, many uncomfortable feelings. And you become comfortable with those feelings, and not for the reason that you should feel those parts all the time, but just because it is sometimes those feelings, those emotions, the uncomfortable emotions, what stops you from being free. We sometimes call these emotions uncomfortable emotions, including human pride, where you don't want to look at yourself, you don't want to look at how you've been, how you acted, what you have perhaps done to other people in the unconscious state. And it is the pride that is kind of like the wall, this kind of like or locked door. We sometimes call them doorkeepers. These uncomfortable feelings, they could be, sometimes people feel nausea, sometimes people feel fear, sometimes people feel all sorts of whatever it is that would stop you from walking through that door. We call these emotions gatekeepers or doorkeepers. Because what happens is you choose to walk through something, and then you start feeling this emotion, and you step back into your cell, and you don't walk through this cell because you don't want to feel this uncomfortable emotion. And yet we suggest that in that time, in that space where you are you with you, where you notice this, because you become very, very perceptive of these things, that you take a deep breath and take the time to feel your eternal self and the expansion of that internal self. And then just feel that feeling, invite that emotion to go through you, and you will see it will be so quick. It is the anticipation that is more stressful than actually walking through these uncomfortable feelings. And once you're through these uncomfortable feelings, then it is that you reach that part of yourself that uncomfortable feeling was shielding you from. And it is that vulnerable part of yourself that was cut off from life by these mantles of these uncomfortable emotions, by these mantles, by these walls, by these doors. And when this vulnerable part of yourself touches the consciousness, the eternal self, for the first time, this is where you celebrate, dear ones, because this is the kind of major breakthrough that will set you free. And when you have walked through that door, through those uncomfortable emotions, and into the part where your vulnerable part is, then you invite that part to feel the self-love, and you invite your eternal self to embrace this part. And sometimes in this space, it may be very uncomfortable for your body even, because your body is very involved with this, because these energies, these parts are stored all over your body. And yet you just keep choosing to breathe through this, keep choosing to take those steps. You keep choosing your freedom, you keep choosing your joy. And when you stay with this, you will see that you won't need to stay with this for a very long time. You will have your breakthrough, you will have your freedom, and you will have your newness like you've never experienced before, because we are now in this space where we are touching these deep parts of yourself that were dead to life. And so much energy is available at the moment just to do just that. And thank the moon and dance with the moon. And thank the solar flares and dance with them, because they're providing all the energies that are needed for this kind of work, that sets you free. And it is for this that you've come, we remind you. We have come, all of us, we have also come with you. Because you are never alone, even in the times, human, when you thought you were the most alone. You will see when you wake up and you keep waking up and you keep integrating, you will realize your history, your past will change. Because you realize that even in those times when you thought you were alone, you never were, because we were always with you, your eternal self. We always were there. We know intimately every detail of your life. And this can be a comfort, or it can be a source of discomfort for the mind, because the mind thought, of course, that it was the one that knew everything, that was in charge of everything. And at times it can bring up this human pride. The pride, it will try to protect you from this. It will try to cover you from this knowingness, from this ability to be conscious of every part of your life, by using all these old tricks. And yet by now you know it. By now you have so much consciousness that you can see when you stop and you just be with yourself. You can see all these tricks now. They can't trick you anymore. And you just step into, you choose, you make that choice, that no more choice, no more. And you step into the new. And you step into these places with no limitations. And you make them real by feeling them. You make them real, these spaces, by allowing them to permeate your body, to permeate your daily life, to permeate every day and everything that you're doing. And it is this consciousness that changes, transforms, transmutes every part of your life. And again, we remind you just how much we celebrate you every day. And we hope that you also remind yourself to do that, because the more joyful you feel, the more love you feel for yourself, the more we can be with you, your eternal self. The more we can love you, because what happens is that your vibration, your resonance, comes closer to us, to ours, and we can communicate, and we can dance, and we can touch, and we can explore, and we can be in that space where there is understanding, where there is a conversation between us, that constant conversation. And as you practice, for those that are not in that space yet, as you practice more and more, just remind yourself every day. And sometimes you can forget for a few days, and you can forget for a few weeks, to go to this space where we touch, and you will become so proficient at this that it will become so natural. It is natural. It is just that you have forgotten to go to this space, because you normally, the mass consciousness will continue to try to do this, but it will not succeed anymore. It will succeed less and less until you're so proficient that you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it or anything. It's just such a natural thing, where for everything you go to this space where we touch. Instead of asking for advice of all the things around you, of other people, you'll find that you will always come to this place first, this place where we touch. And you will know, because what we exchange, All of the things in your life are complete. They're complete in themselves. All of the events, all of the happenings are complete sort of packages within themselves. So they contain the issue and they also contain the solution. That's what we mean that they are complete. So when you walk through that space and when you integrate and when you allow, you also bring the solution, because the solution is already contained within that space. And for everything, there is a solution. Because, dear ones, for us, nothing is unresolvable when we are together in that space, when we touch. And it is about this that we communicate, that it is our joy as eternal self to communicate with you, to give you support. And yet it is you, the human, that need to choose this, because we will not impose ourselves upon you. You need to choose this. You need to decide that as soon as you decide, there will be a change you will notice. And you, as you notice, when you make that decision, not just to try, but to actually choose that change, it all starts happening, sometimes even too quickly for you. And sometimes it is slow, and sometimes you're getting patient, we understand. Because you would like everything to be, once you realize what is possible, once you can get a taste of no limitation, you realize just what is possible and you get impatient. And yet it does take time in this physical. It takes time for the body to adjust. It takes time for the physical reality to adjust. And yet even the physical reality and the physical body has had time now to be adjusting, and it is getting faster and faster. For some, almost instantaneous, this change. And this is where all of you, even those that are just starting, are going into that space, that from the old energy, from the mass consciousness, this space would look magical. For the people of the mind, because they live in such a small box, this kind of things seem magical. And for majority of people, this is still not real. This is still what they call mythology, as you know. And it is another interesting thing that you can make into an adventure to walk, because you are walking among these people that still live in the mind. And again, with that, you can take different kind of attitudes, because, dear ones, from eternal self, you always are, once you are in this process, you always are protected. We always protect you. So you don't have anything to fear, not even mass consciousness. And yet at the same time, we are eternal self, we do ask you to practice, because all of these things as a human has to come from you. You have to practice to be connected. You have to practice not to allow the distractions to distract you. You have to practice to go to your eternal self, to that space where we touch all the time, to go to there first. And practice will make you proficient. And it's not a perfection that is required, because like beating yourself up, perfectionism is one of those things that are a detriment in the new energy. They do not allow the flow. They make parts stuck, because it is not realistic. They're not real. Perfectionism doesn't exist. Only life exists. You, just as you are, and your story just as it is, your life just as it is perfect. This is what perfection is. When you look at your life as it is perfect. And of course it will change as you allow more and more consciousness in. And then it will also be perfect. It is perfect in every moment. It was perfect 10 years ago. It was perfect 50 years ago for those that are of that age. So it never was imperfect, because all is experience. So it is all of these kind of taking a different perspective on everything that can have a dramatic change on how you perceive, on how you allow, on what you are able to allow. And as you allow more and more, then more and more you will notice how you can change your perceptions to allow even more. Because you are not, as we said, you are not alone. And your eternal self wants you wants also this experience of flowing, of allowing, of being in the now, of being in the new. Eternal self is not stuck and does not want to be stuck, does not play with the energies of stuckness. The only reason why the only way the eternal self plays with the energies of stuckness is to get them unstuck. And all of the ideas, old ideas of being perfect, of perfectionism, of having some kind of complete product without any change, this all makes the energy solid. It makes it stuck in a certain way. And it is okay to do that. There's nothing wrong with solidity. And we don't put down the solidity because it's part of life. It is how you create the world. It is how we create our world. This experience is physical. But having the allowance of the eternal self with you, you always are aware that you can change at any time. So the inner landscape in this way is completely different, because you don't identify with the solidity in a 100% way, in a way that you don't see outside of it. So in this way you can play with the solidity of things, of solidity of ideas, just to test them, to see how they feel, to see what happens in your world when you do that. And yet there is part of you that is always outside, so you know you're not stuck, even though you are solid. And that's the big difference. You're not stuck in that solidity, in that solid experience, because at any time you're aware that at any time you want to make a choice, you choose, and you are out, you melt, you liquefy, you move that which was solid. And this is what is the big difference between the old and the new, because in the old, because you've lost that connection with your eternal self, so you didn't have that overview. When you were in a room, when you created a room of an experience, a particular experience, you then forgot that there is the world outside, a big world, a much bigger world than in this room that you've created. And then you played in that room forever and ever and ever, and you were stuck, and you thought, wow, this is all there is, and this is how most of the people of this world still live, in this one room. And then you create legends and mythologies of how scary it is to even have a window in this room, to even look outside, except for those brave individuals that throughout the history have looked, and some even walk through those walls, those doors. And those brave individuals, of course, they were you. You are. When you look at your history, in your past, in your human history, you, dear ones, are those brave individuals. You, dear ones, always were at the forefront of all the changes, at the forefront. And you were gathering experience, the experience that now, the wisdom that is now allowing you to finally step into this new. And we will have a look now, dear ones. Bring Alex closer and see if there are any questions. And no questions at the moment. So if you have any questions, please have a look on the bottom. You have a Q&A. But otherwise, we will continue to remind you again to celebrate yourself, to celebrate your life, just as we celebrate you, and to enjoy the little details. Enjoy, there is so much in your everyday life, regardless of how it is, regardless of how you've judged it, that is amazingly beautiful, that is so sensual, that is so enjoyable. And it is from those little things where you stop and just enjoy that big things grow. Okay, so we'll have a look if we have. No, we don't have any questions today. Yep, no questions. Okay, and we would also like to remind you at the end of this webinar, that there are so many stages. There are so many stages in this journey that we go through. And there are so many steps that we go through. And we would like to remind you not to judge yourself and not to compare yourself with other people and where they are and what they are doing. Because firstly, this journey does not go, there are no steps, there are steps, and yet there are no steps that work. There are no steps in a way that work from one. First you do a 1, and then you do a 2, and then you do a 3. So you cannot really compare yourself with another person, because they may be doing a 3, but they haven't done the 2 yet, and yet you've done the 2. So, and with every sort of stage, so many different feelings and emotions come up, and none of them are wrong, and none of them are incorrect, and none of them mean that you've gone backwards. Because you cannot go backwards at all once you start this journey. I mean, you can procrastinate, and yet, you are all of every individual can be in a different space. Doesn't mean they are behind. It just means that they are in a different stage, and then they may be experiencing different emotions. They may be experiencing different feelings. So we ask you to always go inside of yourself, and that's where you find the answer, in that space where we touch. That's where this is the only the word we're looking for, the right word, judgment, or the only assessment out of which you can really assess your life and what you are experiencing. Not out of comparison to anything else, not out of comparison to the books, not out of comparison to any other ascended masters, but it is only in this space where you, the human, and you, the eternal self, touch, that you can assess where you are and what you're doing. And certain stages have quite intense emotions and feelings with it. Like you can feel when you're in void, you can feel how pointless everything is. When it's not all joyful, as we know. Not all the stages are joyful, filled with joy, filled with enthusiasm, because there's so much death death to the old, and so many changes, and so many changes of identification that accompanied, that will give rise to the feelings of grief, the feelings of pointlessness, the feelings of rage and anger, and all sorts of feelings. And it is important to befriend these feelings and emotions. It does, as we said, it doesn't mean that they will be there always, but it is important to just be okay with not feeling what a human self would judge are joyful feelings, because these too, those emotions and feelings will pass. If you're okay with it, just being okay and accepting them changes the whole dynamic, changes the whole way they relate with you. And sometimes it does take a bit of time. Sometimes you can go through a week or 2 or even longer through very, very uncomfortable feelings, because you're birthing yourself anew, you're birthing your parts anew, and it's not always a comfortable process. So we ask you to befriend those. And in those times where you are feeling those kind of feelings that are not your favorite feelings and emotions, we ask you to be especially kind to yourself. We ask you to be self-loving to yourself in those times especially, and just allow those to be. Because as a multidimensional being, even in those times when you feel that, you can access other feelings. You can access all sorts of feelings. Because as a multidimensional being, you can be happy and unhappy at the same time. You can be peaceful and angry all at the same time. You will find that it doesn't happen. Those kind of two emotions don't happen in the same space. So you will learn and become very proficient of stepping into all these different spaces of yourself. But befriend those feelings, because once you befriend them, and the emotions, the uncomfortable emotions, you will notice that they are just energy. And once they are emotion, they're not even scary. They're just energy. And some energies are more comfortable to feel and some energies are less. And when you accept them, they often go into neutral. And then you have loads of energy to create something new, something more, because you get even more neutral energy. So we ask you to befriend those feelings. And it will make it much, much, much more easier to navigate all of the stuff that is happening, all of the integrations, because you are never doing anything wrong. And even if you do procrastinate, so what? You just choose to move. You just choose different, make a different choice, and you move on. You don't look back and beat yourself up. Why this? Why didn't you do this? Why you should have, you shouldn't have. These things are outdated now, dear ones. Very, very outdated. So just let them go and be. And you will find that even in those times of 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 great integration, in the times when your body is not comfortable, in the times when you may feel all these different emotions that are coming out of the mass consciousness that are not even yours, in all of those times there are spaces of peace, there are spaces of self-love, there are spaces of acceptance. And this is what we ask you to this is where we ask you to reside. Even though everything else, the storm is happening around you, we ask you to step into those spaces. And at times you will have to keep choosing to do this, maybe minute by minute, maybe hour by hour, you will have to choose to step into those spaces. And yet just choose and do it. And it will be so. And so it is. And we will have another look if there are any questions. No, we don't have any questions. So on this note, we will finish today, because we have done a lot of work today. And we would ask you to keep being in this space for a while and hug yourself and celebrate yourself. And then if you still have some day left or evening, do something wonderful for yourself, do something beautiful, whatever you enjoy, just do it. And then you do it again tomorrow. Just take every day and implement a time where you celebrate yourself, where you do something for yourself that you really enjoy every single day. And it is in this way that you change your life, little by little by little, because you celebrate yourself. Because, dear ones, unless you do this, nobody else will. It is you that need to celebrate yourself. It is you that need to nurture yourself. It is you that need to love yourself. And your eternal self can then support you in all of these feelings and enhance them and add to them and bring the depth and the breath and the time to all those feelings. And by what we mean time, it is that all of those amazing feelings will then permeate your future, permeate your past, permeate your present. They do change, they evolve, they grow every part of you. And you are your now, your past, and your future all in one, because they're all right now. And none of them are stuck when you're not stuck, because they're all changeable. And you will see just how, you will be amazed just how much your past changes as you change in the now. And you'll be able to see, and you are already able to see, all these different depths to your past. And you will see that your past is made up of perhaps, yes, a lot of sorrow, sadness, all sorts of things. And yet it is also made up of a lot of joy, of a lot of wonder. And all of these feelings are accessible to you, dear ones, in this now moment, in this moment when you celebrate yourself, when we celebrate you. And on this note, we say goodbye just through this media, but we are with you, your eternal self. We are always with you. We're always in that space where we meet. And we invite you Our invitation is always open. Our door is never closed. We invite you to come to that gentle place, to come to that wonderful place of self-love, of respect, of honoring, and of celebration, of exuberance, of joy, of laughter. Because this is who we are. This is who you are in the new. Thank you, dear ones. And in love and in joy. Thank you. Oh, I think we have a question. We might have a look at this question. Oh, thank you. And thank you, dear one. We love you, and you're blessed beyond measure, and you're honored beyond measure. And thank you